Let's take a look inside Mr. Gibson's public speaking classroom.
Teachers, students, random viewers that happen here by accident, welcome to Teacher Apartment Studios. We have been averaging a 2.75-star review since we were established in 2016. So I'm going to jump right in, speakers, and I'm going to answer for you today the question of how much honesty is too much. I'm sure you've all had a TMI experience. You're on a coffee date, maybe a family reunion, and somebody says something, and you go, oh, it makes you feel uncomfortable, right? Maybe too much too soon. Maybe never should have been said at all. In communication studies, honesty is called self-disclosure, and it's the purposeful process of self-revealing information about oneself. And communication allows for the spectrum of possibilities. There are many people that are going to be very reserved and are only going to give away a little bit of information. And there are pros to that, and there are cons. And I'm sure that just like those people, you probably met somebody that just is willing to just tell you their entire life story. And there are pros and cons to that style of self-disclosure as well. I think what's key here for you public speakers is purposeful. That's what I want to focus on. Okay. And here's a piece from a text. Non-intimate relationships progress to intimate relationships because of self-disclosure. Right? This process allows people to get to know each other in a relationship. You have been doing that in this course. At the very first day, we said our names, we said where we were from, or we said where our favorite place was. And that was it. Next time I met you, we filled out a card, we put on a few fun facts, and I said, hey, if you're so willing, share, take a risk and share something interesting, right? But I also said you are certainly willing, you're welcome to play it safe, right? And communicate, reveal within your comfort zone. Your first speech is another opportunity where for 90 seconds to 3 minutes, you are revealing information about yourself. And what has happened just through the process of being a member of the class or someone in this course is that we have went from not knowing each other or maybe knowing very little about each other to knowing more about each other. And we're only a few weeks in, so this process is going to continue to progress. But it's very easy. I mean, if you walk by somebody in the grocery store and you reveal nothing, you say nothing, no relationship. And it's got to start with a hi, hello, my name is Slim Shady, Brad, whatever your name is. I don't know. You insert your own name. So now, speakers, of course, one of my babies. So I'm very happy to present this information for you and to answer the question, how much honesty is too much? I've called it unreliable. I think that incompetent also works. Incompetent meaning that you are not good at your job. And things that speakers will say, things that speakers will disclose who are unreliable or incompetent might be things, some of the most common might be, I didn't prepare, right? Or this might not be good. Or I'm not good at public speaking. So here's the problem with revealing those things. I think that if speakers are conscious, and maybe it's happening in the subconscious, but they're saying those things, they're disclosing that information, and maybe they're hoping for sympathy from the audience. But something else is actually happening, something that they should be concerned with. When you say I didn't prepare, what you're kind of saying is that I don't care about you, the audience. You didn't prepare. So I have attended this seminar, or I'm interviewing you, or you are about to deliver a 7-minute speech, and somewhere in the very beginning and or in the middle, because things are falling apart and you just can't help but let that inner monologue come out, you say, I didn't prepare. And what you're saying is, I didn't care about you. Right? The time is ticking. Right? We only have so much time. I keep the hair down low because the gray hairs are starting to come in. Okay? Time is valuable. Yeah. If you didn't prepare, don't bother showing up. Cancel. That is the most important part of the work that you would do, speaker. And if you're wondering, well, how do I minimize nerves? Prepare, 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 prepare. Right? And I hate the saying because it is cliche, but if you didn't prepare, maybe better not to say that and just try to baffle us with bullshit. But keep in mind, right, that at least when you're working with me, my name is Brad Scott Gibson. BS Gibson. And another cliche phrase is don't try to BS a BSer. This might not be good. The problem with saying this might not be good is that if you don't think it's good, what do you think that we're going to think about it? You think about maybe making a mind shift adjustment, right? Some sort of, think about your material differently, because ultimately we get to be the judge. And you're probably, generally speaking, people are their own worst critic. You're probably being too hard on yourself. But when you set the expectation low, we're going to meet you at that expectation level. If you come in with low energy, then that is where we're going to meet you. You come in with a low expectation of the quality of materials you are going to present, and you tell us that. That's where we'll meet you. I'm not good at public speaking. Guess what? I'm not good at playing the flute. I'm not good at golf. None of us are good at public speaking in the beginning. It's a process, just like anything else. Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours. Put in your time, pay your dues. It's okay. You know what? People are going to admire your bravery. It's okay to not say, right? Just avoid the I'm not good at public speaking, because again, you might be your own worst critic, and perhaps there are things that you are doing well. I'd like to believe intentionally, especially after you've taken this class, or maybe just by accident, that people would go, wow, that was amazing, either your delivery or your content. But when you tell us that you're not good, then that's what we're going to think. Because you are leading us and you've just said, I'm not a good leader. There's something else to be said about that last one, and that is a matter of trust. I want you to think about the definition of credibility. When you say that this is not going to be good, well, we trust you, and right, we willing to give you a little bit amount of, a little bit of latitude, so we'll believe you. And when you say that you're not good at public speaking, well, now you're about to present something that we should go along on this ride with you, but you told us not to trust you. You're stepping on your credibility. Speakers, when you say things that make you sound unreliable or incompetent, you are stepping on, and if not damaging, maybe just completely throwing your speaker credibility out the window. And it's too important for you. You need to be caring about your credibility. Avoid saying those things. It's better off to just keep some of those things inside. So that is the TMI. Avoid doing those things because they damage your credibility. Did you hear that? Should I say it one more time? Okay. Vulnerability. Also, moments where you are disclosing information. You are revealing information about yourself. But there are billions of dollars to be made with vulnerability. And I love to say that. Here, I'm going to do the lean in for the camera. I love to say that because it sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. Billions of dollars have been made by speakers being vulnerable. Do tell Gibson. Self-deprecating humor. That's humor where you are making fun of yourself. Humor where you are making fun of yourself. Gabriel Iglesias. I say the name and you might go, I don't know who that is. But if I were to say the comedian Fluffy, then there's a chance that more people would know who I'm speaking about. Well, Fluffy is a joke. It is a self-deprecating joke. It's a joke that Gabriel Iglesias wrote about himself to make fun of his weight.
For those of you that don't know, there's actually 5 different levels of fatness. If you don't know them, let me tell them. There's big, there's healthy, there's husky, there's fluffy, and there's damn.
If you watch the way it's presented, he's smiling about it, he's laughing about it, and what does that do? That, if you think about the writing goal, one, right, he's eliciting an emotional response, the one that he was hoping for, and it sets people at ease. Right? There's a tension when people go into a comedy club. Please don't make fun of me. Please don't make fun of me. And he starts by making fun of himself. And that joke has become so famous and so popular that if you were to go to a Gabriel Iglesias concert, right, held in a stadium at this point, people are going to be chanting, Fluffy, Fluffy, Fluffy. It's flashing on the marquee. If you were to tell a story where you were willing to admit to a failure, a flaw, a foible, and some sort of mistake, again, you're being vulnerable. Right? You're not saying I'm a bad speaker, because in those stories, you're actually saying maybe something like, when I was a student in high school, I didn't get the best grades. As a matter of fact, I got a 1.9 GPA. Like, that doesn't damage your credibility as a speaker. That's just you admitting to making a mistake in the past. And speakers, when you do that, you are being very relatable. The audience can relate to you. Just because the room isn't filled with people that have earned or lack of earned a 1.9 GPA, plenty of people are going to a place in their own mind where they're like, well, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that's me. I can relate to that in the context of my own life.
In this upcoming clip, you are going to see Gary Cantrell admit to one of multiple failings that he addresses throughout this TED Talk. He had these visions of athletic grandeur, and while he didn't achieve those, he did find great success as a race director for ultra marathons. So listen to how he makes lighthearted jests about one of his failings, and also catch the very real and almost painful ending as he reflects upon his success and perhaps how it also relates to some of his misfortunes leading up to that.
Moving up in distance, I thought, well, I'll be an Olympic marathoner. And it's a reasonable goal. All you can be anything you want to be. Except when you realize that the Olympic marathoners run faster per mile than I can run for 1 mile. It turned out when I ran the first ultra, it was readily apparent that I had actually passed my optimum point, and I was not even as good at ultras as I was at marathons. I realized I didn't get my dream, but even better, to help other people. As it was.
Let's say that, because we all look in the mirror, and you maybe see something about yourself that you're not happy about. Generally speaking, everybody's got at least one thing, right? So I'm willing to get up and talk about how I previously had an open underbite and people teased me for having a long face. And now there's people in the room that are thinking, well, that's how I feel about my ears, or maybe that's how they feel about their nose. So people can relate to that. And again, I'm not damaging my credibility. I haven't said anything about my ability to speak. I haven't said anything about my ability to tell a story. All I've really done is demonstrated that willingness to share something. And I'm eliciting an emotional response, right? Now the audience can empathize with me, right? They're not trying to get them to sympathize with me because I'm admitting that I'm a terrible speaker. When people tell stories about tragedies, again, we've all probably experienced some sort of tragedy. It's very brave and courageous of you to be so willing to share stories of personal tragedy and loss. Most of us have experienced loss of a loved one. Most of us have had some sort of, be it an accident or experienced vicariously an accident of somebody that we really care about. And so when you talk about your accident, we can relate to that. You're going to elicit emotional responses if you're willing to tell those kind of stories. But again, don't say Gibson made me do this. Only share within your comfort zone. But some examples. Oprah, first African-American billionaire female, shared stories about her personal tragedies and her struggle with weight loss. And I'm going to show a clip, so I'm going to be generic about the personal tragedies. And pay attention to the trigger warning from earlier.
Waiting to be processed through the detention home and recognizing in that moment that I have been abused since I was 9 years old, raped at 9 years old, abused at 10 years old, molested for all of those years, and now pregnant as a result of that. And
Oprah's initial discussions about her journey of self-love through her weight loss and weight gain, those discussions were happening well before we have learned to really embrace bodies of all sizes. These discussions were happening in the 80s. Her discussions and her initial opening up about her sexual abuse and trauma, this information was delivered in the 80s, in the early 90s, well before perhaps there is less stigma perhaps surrounding those kind of conversations and discussions now, but really she was at the forefront of being willing to disclose that information. And if you think about the writing goal, right, her willingness to share really allowed for other people to feel comfortable and to share as well. And now Oprah's credibility, and not just because of those two things, but that was her vulnerability was certainly part of it. But Oprah has the credibility to tell people to do things like go buy a book. They have no other information to go off of, but Oprah says this is a great book, and it becomes a New York Times bestseller. Oprah says these are the things that I really like this Christmas, and it makes headline news, and people go out and buy the things that Oprah says that she likes this Christmas. Check out this clip of Candy Chang talking about a loss of a mentor. Ultimately, this speech leads to a standing ovation, I'm sure in part because of her willingness to be vulnerable and her ability to stay poised and composed throughout her vulnerability, her openness.
In 2009, I lost someone I loved very much. Her name was Joan, and she was a mother to me. And her death was sudden and unexpected. And I thought about death a lot. And this made me feel deep gratitude for the time I've had.
Anthony Robbins is considered, at least from a wealth perspective, and there are many that consider him to be the greatest living and perhaps greatest of all time motivational speaker. His story starts out with a place of extreme vulnerability, and he rags to riches story, and he wants to share his success with you, and people can relate to the part of the rags and they want the riches. And so they go out and buy his book, buy his CD, go to his seminars, and now he owns his own island.
I grew up in a relatively tough, not relative, really tough environment. We were dirt poor. We had no money for food. And then one day, somebody delivered this meal to our house. It just changed my whole view of life. And that day changed everything for me because it made me believe strangers care. And if strangers care about me, I want to care about strangers.
Robbins may have been inspired by this act of kindness, but his life didn't really change until he hit rock bottom as a young man in the late 70s.
I started self-sabotaging, and I never did drugs or alcohol because people around me growing up did, and they were quite abusive, but I used food like a drug. And I ate and ate and ate. I gained 38 pounds. And watching soap operas, I was there for Luke and Laura on General Hospital, if anybody's old enough to remember that. And then I moved to this little apartment in Venice, this little 400 square foot bachelor apartment, no kitchen, and washing my dishes in the bathtub, cooking on a little hot plate on a trash can. And I was just feeling sorry for myself. And what changed me was I hit bottom. You know, not everybody hits bottom. Thank God I did. I was driving my 260Z car down Pacific Coast Highway, and I don't know, I was about 2 or 3 miles from home, still in Santa Monica, and I ran out of gas. And I didn't run out of gas because I'd forgotten to fill the tank. I ran out of gas because I had not a penny left. And I walked home, and the sun was setting, and I walk up the stairs. I remember it vividly. And I get to my front door, and there is a note typed and stapled to the door, and it says, "You are late on your rent. You have 3 days to pay it off, or the sheriff will remove your things." So now it's dark, and I light a candle. And I didn't light the candle because I was spiritual. I lit the candle because I also had not paid my electric bill. So I'm literally reading, no BS, my eviction notice by candlelight.
Eminem, Kanye West, their initial albums, if you like them or hate them, there are multiple songs where they are talking about personal tragedies, flaws, failures. The audiences can relate. Those albums went #1. Those are artists that I know that you know by name. They're both, if not billionaire, close enough. And it all started with vulnerability.
This song is dedicated to all the happy people. All the happy people who have real nice lives and have no idea what it's like to be broke as I feel like I'm walking a tightrope without a circus net. Popping Percocet, I'm a nervous wreck. I deserve respect, but I work a sweat for this worthless check. I'm about to burst this tech and somebody to reverse this debt. Minimum wage got my adrenaline caged, full of venom and rage. Especially when I'm engaged and my daughter's down to her last diaper. It's got my ass hyper. I pray that God answers. Maybe I'll ask nicer.
There's too much stuff on my heart right now, man. I gladly risk it all right now. If you could feel how my face felt, you would know how Mace felt. Thank God I ain't too cool for the safe bill. When the doctor told me I was gonna have a plate in my chin, I said, dog, did you realize I'll never make it on a plane now?
You're familiar with NF. Jordan Jensen is a comedian right now that is rising rapid fire in popularity, and she's talking about some things mental health issue-wise, which is still, you might say, is very taboo. But because of her willingness to take those risks and to be vulnerable and to make jokes about it, the audience can relate. She's getting big laughs. She just had her first Netflix special. And this is where I say, please don't go out and watch Jordan Jensen. If you do, blame yourself. I'm telling you to not watch it. At the bare minimum, if you decide not to be vulnerable, at least you understand the value that it has. As a writer, I was extremely vulnerable about a bad high school experience. That essay was my admissions essay into my master's in teaching program, and it was also the story as a part of my essay for admissions into my graduate program at the University of Miami. I used the same story to get into 2 different degree programs, but it's definitely a jaw dropper. What? I will, for the rest of my life, continue to receive a check for $2,200. And trust me, I'm not bragging, but point being, why am I getting this check? Because I was willing to be vulnerable and I knew how to tell a good story. And I was in a position where if I had not been open, if I had not fully disclosed and I was not a good storyteller, I would be receiving 0 benefits. hope this information and the clips were valuable and helpful. And if they weren't, just keep in mind, 2.75 stars, 10 years and running.